weather and numerous other spots, has been documented to the satisfaction of even the skeptical reader. This fact is not even being denied by the government anymore. Rain Corporation, constructing a web of underground tunnels in 1970s. But in view of the severe earthquakes that will accompany the passage, these bunkers would become tombs, burying alive those seeking shelter there. Today the elite is not looking to survive the coming cataclysms in underground installations, as they realize these will be death traps. Underground installations are still being used, however, to house activities the military would prefer the public not be aware of. Portions of the U.S. government were set to sculpt and reduce the world's population to a select few, known as Golden Billion concept, by targeting an elimination of the so-called undesirables. And thus, we have the spread of deadly diseases, threatening a pandemic, AIDS and Ebola viruses, as well as various other dirty affairs, which the CIA seems to be the center of. AIDS was unknown to the civilized world, and would not have been, if not for the intervention by these power elites. There were plans to trim the world's populations with other diseases, too. However, AIDS began to sculpt in ways not expected. The rich, the influential, those close to home. The Ebola virus did not catch on, as the AIDS did, but it tended to kill its handlers. Arguments erupted in the CIA camps, where the wand of death were held, and thus, this is essentially a closed issue now. Much of the impetus behind the space program, the rush to the moon, was to gain the privileged few the ability to maneuver within the solar system. From its inception, NASA was attempting to secure an escape from the forthcoming cataclysms, and they still have this as their dominant agenda. The thought of being stuck on Earth during cataclysms, along with the common man, is unsettling for them. They hope to watch the show from a distance. And when the rock and roll is over, and things have settled down a bit, they would emerge to rule the world populations as kings. Why, all of a sudden, years after flights to the moon were suspended, we need to build a base on the moon, or rush to Mars? What is the hurry? Why rush to other planets? To destroy yet another world? They hope to get up there, and set up a base. They are already practicing how to provide a space station with fresh food and water supply. They are looking for water, which, they know, is there. All this is well disguised in talk about scientific exploration of the universe. This is their plan, but they will not be allowed this. The universe does not operate like man imagines it does. Earth is man's spiritual schoolhouse, and it is under certain rules in place to maintain balance. There will be no escape from Earth allowed for anyone, unless they include the common man also. Alternative 3 was implemented, partly, but the general populace can't get to the surface of other planets to prove that. Installations on the moon, and elsewhere, were abandoned when Alternative 3 turned out not to run as expected. Shuttle explosions, and launch difficulties, problems out in space, that affect expensive equipment, and threaten astronauts, are no accident. The decision-makers have been told that their plans will not succeed, no matter how hard they try. They prefer not to hear this. Their next reaction was to divert or destroy the inbound Planet X. Nuke it. Push it. Perhaps even move the Earth out of the way. The public face of this plan was the Star Wars program of the 80s, asteroid deflection program, and movies, such as Deep Impact, Asteroid and Armageddon, where NASA saves the day, and the whole world announces gratitude. This plot will likewise not succeed. Even should humans figure out how to do this, this would not be allowed. Primarily because of the intelligent life form, giant hominoids, the Anunnaki, who are resident on the 12th planet. Young worlds are not to destroy, or interfere unduly with each other. They won't succeed, but are not expected to give up. Various establishment elites want to remain in control, during and through the troubled times. Major world powers allied with the U.S. No. Countries suspecting are surrounding these. Those who are in the know include certain members of the government, the wealthy, heads of the biggest corporations, military and religious leaders, top banking establishment. These individuals know each other personally, the connection's obvious, and thus find the information shared naturally. The elite, those in power, who know about the pending passage, want to keep the common man in doubt as long as possible. They wish calm and the status quo to continue. Should an announcement be made by the government, most workers would fail to attend their jobs, and thus, security of businesses and distribution of goods vulnerable and threatening to stop. Looting would start, which would leave the wealthy to face the rage of the angry mobs coming at them that security could not contain. This is what the wealthy fear, the powerful in the government fear. They fear social unrest in the extreme, and the misery of the common man is the least of their concerns. Thus, absolute silence, up until the end, no warning to the public.
Men will quake in fear, and while terror walks with them, the heralds of doom will appear. They will come softly, as thieves to the tombs. Men will not know them for what they are, men will be deceived. Colburn. Prior to 1994, there has been only one report of a white buffalo birth, in 1933, in Montana. Looking Horse remembers the birth of Miracle, a white buffalo calf, born August 20, 1994, in Janesville, Wisconsin. It was something I thought I would never see in my life. It was just something I heard about when I was growing up. 3 more, in North Dakota, Michigan, and South Dakota, were born within 4 years of Miracle's birth. The same as the white buffalo, who are considered to be sacred signs in Native American religions. Increased incidence of albinism in domestic and wildlife. And deformed frogs, which have started to appear worldwide. It does indeed have a meaning, as it is yet another harbinger of the coming pole shift. Somewhere around 1995, the Earth changes became more pronounced and noticeable, no longer just an issue for academic debate, but a very real and looming concern, directly affecting world populations, and suddenly having governments calculating economic, material, and human losses. The rate of warming has been accelerating, and in the past 25 years, it achieved the rate previously predicted for the 21st century. 1995 was officially the hottest year on record, in the hottest 5-year period on record, following the hottest decade on record, per British Meteorological Office, and the NASA Goddard Institute. 1997 and 1998 saw record-high global mean average temperatures, unprecedented since systematic instrumental temperature recording began in 19th century. Next was 1999, closely stepping on its heels. This was not simply an unusual event, but a threshold point, turning point, the start of a faster ongoing trend. Starting with 1998, each subsequent year has beat the previous year as the hottest on record in human memory, and this trend continued. Warming is not simply raising global air temperatures, it causes more air turbulence, more activity in the atmosphere, and thus, more erratic weather, worldwide. This manifested itself in increasing weather extremes, temperature extremes, rapid weather swings.
Mankind will find its greatest problems with the weather to be its unpredictability. Areas of the world, which have been deserts throughout mankind's memory, will become swamps under constant and repeated rains. Temperate climates, used to periodic gentle rainfall, will suffer intractable droughts. Then, this will switch about, for no apparent reason. Zeta Talk.
A pattern of large areas being affected by severe weather, happening simultaneously in many parts of the world, emerged. severe weather tightened its grip, becoming the norm. Freak weather conditions have claimed hundreds of lives and caused chaos across the world in recent days, as scientists warned governments that greenhouse gases and global warming may distort climates. July 8, 1996, Reuters. We warned at the start of Zeta Talk, in 1995, that unpredictable weather extremes, switching about from drought to deluge, would occur, and increase on a lineal basis, up until the pole shift. This brought forth the talk about how world climate is unstable and changing, for whatever reason. Erratic weather also began to affect commercial crops, damaging crop yields worldwide. Winters have been interrupted with warm spells that confuse crops, causing them to sprout and bud, then freeze, when winter returns. Animal behavior has been noted as confused, mating seasons off schedule, and migration patterns of birds disrupted, such that they fly in the wrong direction. Ocean life is arriving in latitudes not usual, the local species often dying, or moving on. There seems to be more illness now, and apparently on the increase curve too. This is true of animals, as well as humans. New illnesses, or existing known germs in new or strange places, or those which were not heard from for centuries, and were thought to be defeated. In a warmer world, diseases such as malaria, West Nile, and dengue fever, typically found in the tropics, are already widening their range and prevalence. You will hear, but will not understand. You will see, but will not know. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes. For how long, O Lord? Until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolate. And there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. The land will burn, and people become the consumption of the fire. Isaiah 6:10-13. Anxious world populations are pressing their leaders, and embarrassed scientists, demanding explanations, as to why is this all happening? And what to do about it.
Trying to avoid admitting that the cataclysms are approaching, establishment throws out alternative explanations. There is no scientifically valid mechanism for increased human-generated carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions, to create global warming. Do you think that more CO2 will block more radiation, and is supposed to double global warming? Radiation goes through greenhouse gases, like a river. This is not a window in a greenhouse. There is no explanation of how the supposed temperature increase at the top of the troposphere, which is very cold, can produce heat at ground level. Nature puts 33 times as much CO2 into the air, through decay and respiration, as humans produce. Humans add only 3% to the existing CO2 in the atmosphere, while nature adds 97%. Humans produce a minuscule effect on CO2 concentration in the atmosphere, which has a minuscule effect on climate. It's statistically, scientifically, a non-effect. Casual attitude to Kyoto Treaty only adds to the suspicion. Were global warming the real cause, the Kyoto Treaty would have been treated seriously. While limiting pollution, and therefore negative human impact on the environment, is certainly a good thing in and of itself, the sense is that cutting down emissions will not stop or reverse the progressing changes. And recent rapid rise could not be attributed to human intervention, as, if this is global warming, what was the impetus in the last 20-25 years? Records show that the atmosphere has warmed 0.67 degrees Celsius over the past century. And yet, the ocean temperatures have risen 1.53 degrees over the last 50 years. How is it that the oceans, so very deep and cold, have warmed up? Is it the almost imperceptible rise in the temperature of the atmosphere? Why would this slight warming of the air affect the oceans? Oceans have 1,000 times more heat capacity than the atmosphere. This means oceans can heat the air far more than air can heat the oceans. The atmosphere would have to heat a lot before it could heat the oceans a little. What should be especially noted, most of the ocean heating occurs down deep, in deep ocean rifts. Oceanographers are